We're just about finished with our gallop animation. Let's go ahead and take care of the tail. So we'll get right to work. We don't have to be concerned with our root control, tail A. That was mainly to get the initial direction we needed. So we can go ahead and work from B to E. And we'll start with what we'd see in the side view first, and then we can add a circular pattern by taking care of the top view. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started, and as we animate this, we'll need to keep track of the movement of the pelvis and the energy being transferred from this point. Alright, so let's go ahead and grab our move tool, and as we scrub through, we can see that the pelvis is rotating down. So at about frame 5, we'll want to grab this control, tail B, and just go ahead and translate that up. I'm only concerned with the Z and Y axes. We'll worry about the X axis when we take care of our last pass in the top view. Alright, so we have it translating up. Now we'll need to have it translate down as the pelvis rotates back up. So on about frame 11, we can go ahead and translate the control down. Then we're ready to move over to our curve editor and do some cleanup work. So I go to the Y axis. This is the main axis we need to be concerned with, because this is the up and down direction. So let's go ahead and make sure this is very nice and fluid. Great. Then at that point, we can move to the Z axis. I'll go ahead and grab our start and end keys, drag them down just a little bit more. Then we can go ahead and adjust our tangents. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and move to the next control. So that should follow through with tail B. So a few frames after, on frame 7, let's go ahead and translate our control up and over. So I've brought it a little bit closer to tail D and the Z axis. Okay, great. So now we'll need to have it translate down, which will happen around frame 13. So let's go ahead and bring the control down. Okay, great. So now at this point, it's just a matter of going to our position Y track, fixing the fluidity. So let's go ahead and adjust our start and end tangents and do the same thing for our Z axis. So here, I might grab the start and end keys, drag them down so that they are in between our breakdown keys. Then we can go ahead and adjust our tangents. Scrub through. Great. Now, what I like to do at this point is skip over tail D and just use that to add any subtle changes we may need. Because of the amount of influence these controls have, when we go ahead and animate our last control, we can then, again, go back to tail D to avoid any weirdness in the tail's flow afterwards. Alright, so again, I'm going to go ahead and just skip over tail D for now, move to tail E. And taking a look at this, we'd want our control to be brought up on frame 1. And we'll need to transfer that to 16. So first, let's go ahead and deselect just to make sure we don't have the keys on 1 and 16 selected. And now we can grab the key on frame 1, hold down Shift, and clone that over to 16. Great. Now at this point, we can go ahead and have the control translate down on about frame 9. All right, beautiful. So this would be a great time to take a look at a preview. And if we like what we see here, we may not need to add any movement to tail D, and we can move to our last pass, which is the top view. So let's go ahead and see what the preview tells us. Here it is. So we're very close. I'd say that we can delay the timing a bit more on the last control, tail E, just so it isn't moving at the same time the center of gravity is translating up and down. Seems like we're getting a little bit of twinning there, so we can go ahead and break that up, and then at that point we can add just some slight modifications to tail D to fix the overall flow. And then at that point, we're ready to work on our last pass in the top view to finish up. So we're just about finished. Let's go ahead and delay the timing of tail E. So with that selected, I'll just go in and grab all of our keys, except for the x-axis. We just need to be concerned with the ones we've just animated, Y and Z. Let's go ahead and delay them just one frame. We can use our expression for that. So in our time field, that will be n plus 1. And now we'll work on keeping them in range. So let's go ahead and start with the y-axis. We'll right-click and use our Insert Key tool, create a key on frame 16. We can now go to our Move Keys tool, hold down Control-Shift, and drag over to frame 1. We can now delete the key on 17 and clean up our tangents. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and do this for the z-axis. So again, we'll create our key, clone the key, then we can delete the extra key that's outside of our range and tweak our tangents. All right, beautiful. So at this point, we can now go to tail D. Let's go ahead and grab that control object and make some slight changes. So in about frame 3, you can see how rough the tail looks around this point. So I'll go ahead and translate the control up just a little bit more here. And as the tail falls, and then starts to come back up, on about frame 14, I like to go ahead and bring this down just a little bit more to smooth this out. Great. And now at that point, we can go in and adjust our Y and Z axes. So I'll start to go in and adjust the tangents. Let's do the same for the Z axis. Okay, great. So I'd say the side view is the trickiest part. The top view won't take much time. So let's go ahead and get right to work. So we'll start with tail B. We'll just go through, just taking a look at things. So as the tail starts to rise up, we can go ahead and have it shift over to the right a little bit more. On frame 4, we'll go ahead and translate it over in the x-axis. Then on about frame 12, we can go ahead and translate it over to the left. So we're starting to get a circular pattern now. There's a bit of a pause you can see, and then a snap after frame 11. I bet you frame 11 is giving us a little bit of trouble. Let's go ahead and take a look at things in our curve editor. We'll look at our x-axis. All right, there we have it. So we have a few keys we can remove. There's a key on frame 5 we don't need, and also on frame 11. Okay, great. So at this point, we can go ahead and tweak our tangents. And then we can go to the other tracks and kind of clean up some stuff here. There may be extra keys that were added, so we'll just go through and remove those keys. I'll check the z-axis as well. Okay, great. So that's one down. Let's go ahead and take care of the next control, which follows through with tail B. So on frame 6, we can go ahead and translate the control a little bit more over to the right. And then on about frame 14, we'll bring it over to the left. and not much. All right, great. So now going to our x-axis, let's go ahead and remove any extra keys we don't need. It's on frame 7 and also frame 13. We'll fix the flow by adjusting our start and end keys and then adjusting their tangents. And then again, we can go to our other tracks. It's not too necessary at all, but we can spend the time to remove these extra keys just to keep everything clean. So I'll go ahead and take care of the z-axis, removing keys on 6 and 14. All right, so that brings us now to the next control. So let's say we go ahead and get right to work. We'll go ahead and grab tail D. We'll want to add some movement here, so let's go ahead and have the tail swing a bit more to the right in frame 7. And then we can have it move to the left on about frame 15. And it's just a matter of doing some cleanup work. So it looks like we have a key there on 14 we don't need. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Goodbye. And do the same thing on frame 3. Then at that point, let's go ahead and tweak our start and end keys, adjust their tangents, move over to the next track, and start to clean up what we don't need here. So we have a key on frame 7 we don't need, and also a key right here on frame 15. So guess what? That leaves us with one more control. So just taking a look at things, scrubbing through slowly, and just looking at the line of action of the tail just to make sure that we get this just right. I'd say we can go ahead and just head over to frame 8, just one frame after, translate the tail over to the right slightly here. And then the next change we'd want to make is actually on frame 2, where we bring it over to the left. All right, so at that point, all right, we've moved to the last step, which is cleaning this up. So there's 2, there's 8. Let's go ahead and get rid of this key on 9. It's giving us trouble. Adjust our start and end keys. And then clean up the other tracks. And then at that point, we'd be ready to do another preview. Here's a key on frame 8 we don't need. How about the z-axis? So again, on frame 8, we can go ahead and remove that key and we are good to go. So I'll go ahead and find a nice view on the top. Scrub through, making sure everything's in range the way we like it to be, and we'll create another preview. Here it is. All right, take a look at that. We're getting some very nice fluid animation from the tail in the top view. So in the end, this creates a very nice circular pattern. We can take a look at that in 3ds Max. So back in our scene, if we were to kind of just scrub through and take a look at the tail from, let's say, a 3/4 back view, see we're getting some really nice movements. Beautiful. All right, well, that finishes up our work, and guess what? We're nearly finished. In the next lesson, we'll take a look at the animation overall and just make sure we're satisfied with what we see, so that in the following lesson after that, we can go in and translate the gallop forward, and we'll learn some cool techniques on how to do that quickly.